It is what it is. Alright, so these are water kefir grains. This is my daily process, and I'm not trying to take too long to show this. I'm trying to show how simple the process is. So, alright, I'm going to fill this with purified water. Distilled water. We got the grains just rinsed. I don't press them with the spatula or anything fancy like that. I just toss them with the water and then toss them like an egg to get them dried out, shake them around, tap them on the edge like this. But basically once they're done, you just drop them in too, just like any other culture. I mean, it'll get repetitive, and I wanted to do all this at once so you could kind of see how these things are just really simple part. The hardest part is the ritualistic, you have to do it every day. And you can see how a lot of rituals were based on fermenting and stuff throughout history. And really got me interested in this. I mean, Benjamin Franklin was even talking about fermenting like it was a normal thing, and I felt like an idiot because it's like, how is it normal back then and kind of illegal nowadays? But that's just the way things go. So here it is. You just leave that, and once the grapes are floating, last time it took about 2 days. This time it should take about a day. I don't measure, the measuring portion is not going to be involved here whatsoever. I do things by texture, by feel, by roughly what they call for. So just a scoop of sugar, you want to make sure it's 2, 3, for water kefir, 4 or 5 scoops of sugar. It's a good bit, but the bacteria consumes the sugar, so that's what they feed on. They also feed on organic matter, and they break it down into its chemical elements, but they primarily source the food. It's like for us, it's like an energy drink. So you give them sugar, they grow, they make their colony bigger, and you've got more to make fermented foods with. So we move on now to gingerbug. Let me get some more boiled water. So last time I basically just heated some water, melted about half of a cup full of sugar, dumped it in, whisked it up, put them with a single piece of ice, and that's what you saw me dump in there before we filled it back up. I'll be right back. This is 1/3 of a cupper, and that's how much sugar I would usually add to a gingerbug ferment. Alright, so this is the gingerbug, and it would be used in almost the same fashion as the water kefir fluid. Since I'm reviving the water kefir grains, I'm using more sugar than normal. I used about half of this thing instead of or a little bit more than half instead of that little, whatever that was. So I'm just gonna dump this to the chickens. I put that in their scrap bucket, and it processes their food for them. It makes it go a little bit further. So I'm gonna take this, we're gonna level the container up. First day, all I did was cut up an indiscriminate amount of ginger, threw it in here with 2 tablespoons of sugar, water. So on day 2, I'm gonna move this into here, add a bunch more ginger. Doesn't have to be a bunch. You have to kind of time it, because you're looking for about 3 to 4 days. Usually on about day 3, you'll get bubbling and a good healthy gingerbug that you can start making ginger ale with. So I'm not measuring. I can tell you the measuring really doesn't make a huge difference. As long as they've got food, if there's a small amount of bacteria, they'll grow at the rate that they're going to grow. They can only grow at a maximum rate of whatever math that has to be. So you're kind of just trying to give them surface area so they have more to eat. Some people pulp it up in a blender. I have not found that to be necessary. Ginger is not that scarce of a resource because we grow it. And ginger, the skins of ginger has a natural bacteria on it that, or yeast that's attracted to it, that will ferment safely. And when I started a sourdough, this is what I did and do if I mess up my sourdough. So this sourdough here is basically started with this fluid. And so if you want to do pickles, you would just dump some of this fluid over those pickles. And gingerbug's a great pickle starter. For me personally, I like it. You would just use a standard pickle recipe, but use it fermenting instead of vinegar method and let it sit and then put it in the fridge. But alright, so it's a little more ginger than it's quite necessary, but I have no reason to care. Alright, this is a little hot, so we'll add some filtered water to it. This time I'm gonna leave some headspace. I think we'll get final product from here. But every day you basically just do this until you get the product you need. Once this is done, the fluid actually lasts a surprising amount of time in the fridge. So if you like just get a couple jars of gingerbug or a jar or starter off of it, you know, just take it out of the fridge, dump some out, and then feed it again and put it back in the fridge. This will always be available if you just do a drink every 2-3 months or every week or whenever you want to. It's really easy to just feed it again and pour off a little bit to add to something you want to get started. What would you want to get started? Another idea is just fermented hot sauce. So I got a bunch of peppers, beets, garlic, onions, sage, dill, all sorts of stuff in here, and it's fermenting. You'll see at the top you're starting to get that yeast growth. Starting to get that yeast growth, and that's fine. You know, this can even, from what I understand, this can even mold, and that's fine. Like, people have eaten it just fine, but obviously a lot of this is your own taste and caution. If there's mold, I'm not touching it. If there's mold, I dump the whole thing out. Some people eat this stuff when it goes slimy and nasty. A lot of like cheeses and products you've tried before were made with fermentation, but this hot sauce, once it's done and I blend it up, it's not gonna mold on me anywhere near as quick as the vinegar or store, you know, the standard recipe that's not fermented tends to mold and go bad fairly quickly. My neighbor deals with it a lot. And if you ferment it, you'd be shocked. Like the sourdough I've left in the fridge for months and not had any mold growth because this bacterial process is consuming what would be considered food for the mold. So it's kind of like a Dr. Seuss riddle, this whole thing. All these different bacterias basically are protecting you. And there's like, read the book Art of Fermentation by Sandor Katz if you really get into this stuff, because it's just fascinating and has taught me sauces, cheeses. You know, we can make mayonnaise like this now, and you know, being able to do that kind of stuff with healthy ingredients and all that is really important. So I'm gonna clean this counter off and get the sourdough ready. Okay, so because this is about process, I'm hungry, so I'm gonna eat, and I'm gonna use some sourdough and fermented products in my dinner. So I'm just dumping some random ass bone broth in here. The other part of the process is I pause for a while to do the dishes, because when you're doing fermenting, cleanliness is really important. And also, I always tell myself, like, when I'm doing stuff, this is the time that it's going to be the easiest to clean. It's wet. I just got it dirty. It literally takes me this long to get it clean. So this moment is the most efficient time to be lazy and actually deserve the word lazy. Alright, so I'm just taking some Italian seasoning, chicken broth, and I'm going to put it on the stove. Alright, so got out in the yard and just grabbed some greens. There's plantain, a couple different kinds of plantain. I think I broke off a beet leaf. The red veggies got a lot of good stuff in them. Some sage, some basil. You definitely don't have to do this, but the greens add little flavor unless they're herbs and spices. But they're high in minerals, like stuff that we don't get very often, and our bodies are generally really deficient in. So if you can get used to some of the plants that are on your property, or you garden or have stuff fresh like this, it's always better to use that. But if I don't have cayenne peppers, I'm making an extract with powder from Kroger. Ain't nobody stopping me. So that's that. And we're gonna do some pink salt to add some extra minerals. We're gonna do some black pepper. And I'm gonna put a clove of garlic and pause this. Alright, throwing less of garlic in there, and I found these beautiful dandelion leaves. It's rare you get them that big in my yard. I'll find them from time to time in places that are nice, big, and healthy. The healthier the leaf, the healthier the plant, the healthier the body that eats off the plant. Alright, so I'm gonna put this back on the burner. Often I will, I'm gonna put a tomatillo in there because we got them. Why not? Often I'll put all sorts of stuff in the soup. It really doesn't matter what you got. Something quick, something easy. And reason I'm doing the soup is because I'm gonna put sourdough in it for noodles and show you how to use the discard. And I'm gonna do a couple of different things real quick with the discard. And we'll throw them on the stove. Alright, so before I put this kefir up, I'm going to use it to make my breakfast. So this is a similar use to yogurt. I'm just going to basically pour it in here. And any of your yogurts can be used this way. Throw some hellacious amount of cinnamon in there, some Valhalla, we're gonna throw cloves, pretty healthy amount of cloves in there, then one more. Alright, so now I'm putting peppermint leaves. I got some lemon balm in there. And then we got some local picked blueberries a couple of days ago. So I'm going to throw some of them in there. I got some granola. Got some granola with dehydrated fruits in there. Ow. Stir that up. And so oatmeal has anti-nutrients, that if you just make oatmeal and eat it, it actually takes a certain percentage of nutrients to deal with it. And if you ferment it overnight, you can then drain out the fluid and cook it. Some people put it in like this, drain it out and then cook it and like normal, but personally, the granola, I like to just add it to this, let it sit overnight, and that'll thicken up a good bit. And so this is basically a great way to take the sugars and convert them to something slightly more digestible. Because my body has a hard time eating a lot of these things raw. It also helps, it preserves the live enzymes and stuff in the skins like amylase that helps break down starch in a healthy way, stuff like that. So you can do that with any seasoning, spices, herbs. You can put carrots in it. You can put literally anything you want. Let it sit overnight, 2 days. You've got a good ferment and that's added nutrients. You can leave it for a month, and if you like that sour, pickly taste that you get from it, then suck it up. It's alcohol, vinegar, whichever product you choose. So I'm going to move over to the stand real quick. Alright, so this is my soup. It's on the burner. And this is just sourdough discard. It's a pretty soupy mess. I have been feeding it for like 2 days, using it to make this and that, and haven't fully emptied it. So it's a little runnier. It's well fermented, and you basically just drip it into your boiling soup. If you boil again, buddy. And as it runs off, it'll kind of turn into noodles in the water. And honestly, that's one of my favorite methods to add noodles. I got my stupid spoon. Doesn't necessarily matter. You can get stuff in the ferment and it won't bother nothing. But so this flour, what you feed your ferment, can be really any kind of flour, cheap Walmart flour. Spoon open there. Then the final ingredient, I made these last night. They're shrimp bites. I just pureed some shrimp with some hot peppers, onions and stuff in a blender. Mixed them with sourdough and baking soda, threw them on the griddle, and they fried up into these patties. Really good dipped into the soup. So I'm just throwing them in because they're just as good in the soup than out of the soup. Alright, we'll get to another quick part of my common evening. And that would be pancakes. So another discard recipe. This is really runny, so I am going to cheat a little bit. And I'm only going to make a few pancakes, so it doesn't have to be crazy. So I basically just got some discard. It's a little runny. I'm going to put some flour, which will reduce the gluten-free aspect of it. But not much if you're just adding a pinch to dilute it. And as long as you're using decent flour for your system, you're fine. I usually get cheap Walmart flour to feed the ferment if it's small batches that I'm putting up for a while. But when it's stuff that I'm going to be eating immediately, then we get wheat berries that we mill ourselves and we use them. Alright, so we're going to do some salt, some cinnamon, some clove, some nutmeg, and alright, we'll put some blueberries in there. Now you're not getting any fermenting from the blueberries because we're not letting this rise, but you do get some good taste from it. We're going to add a dabble of honey. You're not fermenting the honey, so it's going to be full sugar. Add some coconut oil. Get you a good fry. Turn the soup off. Alright, flip this around. Now, we're doing pancakes, so I'd like to have a little bit more of that butter in there. And then an egg. I'm going to take just the egg white. Screw it, add the whole egg, it'll be fine. It's a pancake. Then I should have these getting hot